I got this vintage filter on, whatever that means. Doesn't look very vintage to me. So, going back to my prior video, what am I trying to get at here? What am I trying to put forth, and what's the point behind it? It seems kind of fruitless and ridiculous to seem to try to understand God and the nature of reality, but that's just how it's built into me. That's what I desire. That's one of the deepest aspects of myself, is to seek that desire, as many other people do as well. So what I'm trying to get at is, I think most of us agree, or people who have been following these subjects for a while, that God is essentially a singularity, an infinite 0 point that contains everything and nothing that ever was, never will be, and contained within that exists every single soul that ever was and never will be. And souls, being like cells, encompass and make up the entirety of the body. Now, I'm just trying to figure out, in that state of absolute perfection, which I have witnessed in my own near-death experience, what triggered a desire, a knowing, to experience oneself subjectively and separately from that perfection. This is interesting because I think we could really use the allegory of Satan, part of it's literal, part of it's allegorical, to describe the quote-unquote downfall and this so-called rebellion, which has been ongoing for eternity in this cyclical process. The rebellion being to separate, or at least have the illusion of separation from the source, in order to experience the perception or manifestation of material realms. And it's really hard to put these things into human terms, because human words can't really describe such vast subjects. But I'm trying to understand, as a collective of souls, why is it that we desire to incarnate? Why is it that we desire? Is it simply out of pure adventure? Is it to test ourselves, to see how low we can go? And after going so low, how far can we pick ourselves back up? And I think, as above, so below, this is often expressed in individual lives on earth, where people often find themselves deep in the depths of despair, and occasionally are able to pick themselves up to new heights. So, is this just all happening just because it can, and because nothing else has ever existed, and this is all we know as a collective of eternal souls? But something inside of me tells me that there is some kind of spark, maybe the right word would be tension. But how could there be tension in that perfection? So there's always some conundrum to overcome here, right? So that causes that sort of separation. So technically speaking, we are the fallen angels, right? Fallen from perfection to submit ourselves into imperfection, and instead of seeing ourselves as a disgrace, we should probably actually look at ourselves as being incredibly brave for stepping away from that perfection to an extremely uncomfortable, annoying, awful place like we are in now. So now, and I'm not by any means saying that there isn't real evil being played here, because of course there is, and there is that to take into consideration. But I'm talking purely from the perspective of our eternal existence as souls, which I believe we have all existed in some form for all eternity. Whether we existed in that form in the absolute perfection and have only now fallen to encounter these sort of realms, or we have encountered these sort of realms for infinite number of times, doesn't really matter, because the question I'm seeking is, what is the real reason that we and God desired to break away? A simple answer like rebellion isn't enough for me. That doesn't satisfy me. I don't see any reason for rebellion in that state of perfection. If there's a rebellion, it contradicts itself. Then it wouldn't be a state of perfection if there was a rebellion. So it's a tough one, guys. Hopefully some of you understand what I'm trying to say. But ultimately the answer most likely just comes down to the most simple one, being that we simply go about these experiences because that's all that's ever existed. These cyclical patterns of creation and destruction have always been, and they never had a beginning. So we don't know anything else.